Now let's not beat around the bush here. Trying to lose fat and maintaining a social life is not easy, which is exactly why I've designed my 3Ps process, which I'm going to be breaking down in its complete form in this video for you today. Because if you're watching this, I know that you're the sort of woman who wants to drop 10 kilos, create the toned athletic figure of your dreams, but you're not about to give up your life in the process. You're holding down a thriving career, you're providing for a family, you're running a household, and equally you want to still maintain your social life on top of that. And whilst this does make things more challenging, it's not an impossible task, and this is exactly what I help my clients with. I have got a whole host of notes here for you, and I am not going to be leaving anything unsaid. So grab yourself a notepad and pen, because I'm going to be mapping out the exact process for you to be able to still go out to eat, live your life, and drop body fat at the same time. Hey, if you're new here, my name's Georgia. I am a women's online health and fitness coach, and I work with high-performing women, helping them to drop 10 kilos and build a strong athletic figure without sacrificing their career and their lifestyle in the process. And as I said, this exact 3-step method is what I implement with my clients and what I help them to easily integrate into their lifestyle on a week-to-week basis. And this can be applied with anything from holidays to work trips to bottomless brunches, meals out. You can apply this process anywhere. So with that being said, let's get into the video. So as I said, we've got 3 clear steps here in my 3Ps process. We've got plan, prepare, and pause. So I'm going to make sure I break down every single one of these steps so you know not only what it is that you need to be doing, but also how you can actually implement that into your life. So let's go in with the first P, which is plan. And this is something that a lot of people miss, and something that I really emphasize with my clients, which is the ability to think ahead and plan ahead for what is coming up. Because when you do have that information ahead of time, it's really important that we utilize that, because there are going to be some things that are last minute. And the third P will also help with that too. So there's a few things that we want to be taking into account with this first P. But like I said, it's all about zooming out and looking ahead of time at what you're going to do. That is going to reduce so much decision fatigue and overwhelm in the moment, which is a big thing that I see that comes in with clients. So this might include things like looking at the menu ahead of time, so that if you've got calories on the menu, you can look at something that's going to align with your calories. You might also look at where you can get your protein from and where you can get some veggies, so you've got plenty of volume in that meal and something that's going to be filling. Because how many times have you been out for a meal, tried to have the smallest or lightest thing on the menu, only to feel hungry an hour later and then have to eat again and ultimately go over your calories? So it's not necessarily just about those calories, it's also about making a decision that aligns with your goals long term. You might also plan for any adjustments you're going to make to your meals. A really good one for this is having your sauce on the side. I literally was having this conversation with a client yesterday. She was going out for breakfast because it was a bank holiday, and we decided that she was going to have eggs Benedict and asked for the hollandaise sauce on the side. This means that she's got so much more control over the portioning of that part of the dish when she's out, and quite often your sauces, your dressings, etc. are where you can really rack up some calories. And also planning ahead for any swaps you might want to make. And some really good ones to do for this: we'll be swapping out your carbs for some veggies or a side salad. This works really well when you're having something like a steak. One of my favourite meals to order in a restaurant when I'm on a fat loss journey is a steak and a side of broccoli. So instead of having chips or whatever side dish comes with that steak, I'm going to swap that out and I'm going to ask them to add in broccoli instead. When I tell you, this is honestly one of the most filling meals ever. So it's perfect to help satisfy you and also keep you on track with your goals. But ultimately, this planning stage means that when you're in the moment, you don't have to think. It can be super overwhelming when you're faced, especially with a really big menu and lots of choice. Plus you've got a busy environment with lots of noise going on. You might be with lots of other people. It might be that you're actually having a client lunch for work, so you're trying to focus on them and the conversations that are being had during the meal. So the last thing you want to be doing is also having an internal panic over what you're going to choose, which is why step number 1, plan, is so crucial, and it's something that so many people miss. Moving on to our second P, which is prepare. This relies on you taking actions in advance to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success within that meal out or trip or holiday, whatever it is. And this again is going to help create a really good buffer, because ultimately when we are eating out, yes, we can track the calories, yes, we can manage the portions, but ultimately there is less that is within our control, and it's going to be less accurate from a documentation point of view. So if we prepare in advance, we can create a little bit more of a buffer and make sure that ultimately across the week we're still on track. So the first thing I want you to look at is planning your week in advance. If you have a week that is super busy and you've got multiple meals out, this might be when we look at utilising something like some calorie banking. This is where you essentially reduce your calories on the days where you're not eating out to save or bank some extra calories. So I want you to think of your calories like this. Instead of looking at it as a daily total, we're actually looking at a weekly total. So yes, you may have 1 or 2 days where your calories are slightly higher, but if we can pull the other days down by about 100 to 150 calories per day, you're still going to overall hit the correct net calorie total for your week, which is ultimately going to keep you on track for your fat loss long term. And this allows you to have more variation through your days as well. Equally with calorie banking, saving 100 to 150 calories is going to give you a manageable amount to save without restricting yourself too much so that you end up going out and going crazy instead. Now that's what you can do with your whole week, but looking at the actual day, especially if something comes up last minute, this can be so beneficial. And that is looking at the meals around the meal that you're having out. So for example, if you're out for lunch, let's look at your breakfast and your dinner, because ultimately we're going to have so much more control over those meals than we do the meal out. Now, I see this so much with ladies that join the team, and that is quite often if they know they have a meal coming out, they will not eat prior to that. And this kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said about looking at the meals around. I want you to make sure that you've eaten before you go out, so you're not ravenous, so that you can act on logic rather than emotions, which is what takes over our brain when we start to get hungry, or if you're like me, hangry. So planning the meals that you have around your meal out is going to be really key for this. What I would suggest is having a high protein, high fiber meal with slightly lighter carbs. That's going to help fill you up, but also not push you crazy high with calories. So again, going back to our analogy of having lunch out and then having your breakfast and dinner at home, what I might have is just some yogurt and fruit for breakfast, or an omelette with loads of veggies. And then for dinner, I might have something like a chicken salad or a salmon fillet and some grilled vegetables. That means I've still eaten 2 substantial meals, I've still topped up my protein alongside that, and I'm not going into my meal out ravenous, but equally I've saved myself some extra calories to make sure that we're still hitting a good overall total for the day. Now that we've looked at what we do around the situation and the planning, the third P is all about what we do in the moment, and this is the pause. This one can be a really, really good technique to utilize, especially if things come up last minute, because ultimately when you do have a busy lifestyle, when you do have a demanding work life, things will come up last minute and you're not always going to have that control before we come to the social event. And pausing can be a really powerful tool, not just from a nutrition perspective, not just from an eating out perspective, but across your entire life. Because quite often when we feel overwhelmed, or when we're put into a situation that we weren't expecting, or something came up last minute, our brain can be going at 100 miles an hour. So once again, we lean into those emotion-led decisions rather than the logic-led decisions, and pausing allows you to lean into that logic. But zooming back in on the subject of eating out, I want you to ask yourself the following reflective questions. So you're taking some time to pause before you act or before you react, and you're going to ask yourself the following reflective questions. Number 1, do I really need this? Number 2, which is so powerful, how am I going to feel after I eat this? And number 3, does this align with my goals? Now, the amazing thing about this technique is that nobody knows that you're doing this. Nobody knows what thoughts are going on in your head, but it's creating that time buffer and that pause internally where you can stop and you can pull yourself out of that emotional thinking. When you see the pizza on the menu and you go, I'm hungry, I need pizza, I like pizza, I want pizza. Then you pull yourself into these reflective questions, you pause, you create that buffer, you ask yourself, do I really need pizza? Like, how am I going to feel after I've eaten the pizza? And does eating the pizza actually align with my goals? And what you'll probably find with something like this is you'll go, actually, I don't really need it. I'm probably going to feel rubbish after I eat it, and it doesn't align with my goals. And that gives you the cold, hard facts to help back up your logical decision to stay on track with your food long term. And this is something I teach my clients all the time because it really is a powerful tool. As I said, not just from a nutrition and an eating out standpoint, but something that you can utilize across all areas of your life. So in summary, they are my 3 Ps for eating out and making sure that you can stay on track with your fat loss without having to sacrifice your life in the process. So we've got plan, prepare, and pause. And if you use these techniques, I can guarantee that you're going to be able to manage your social life so much better. You'll feel so much more in control, and ultimately you're going to see better results faster. And if you want help managing this within your own health and fitness goals, this is exactly what I work on with my clients. So just comment the word coaching down below this video, and I'll send you the link for my one-to-one coaching applications. If you found this video helpful, make sure you like and subscribe because I post content like this literally every single week. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.